Okay, so let us start. So we'll start with a new topic called power systems. So this is actually one of the very important topic, from the fact that actually the power systems and power systems together, actually it is coming out somewhere around actually 130 marks. So it is actually, it's not a small amount, right? So 130 marks together for the power systems and protection. So such an important topic. And in the second paper, actually, we have only 6 different topics. So 6 topics. Out of that, power systems and power system protection are actually 2 different important topics. That means power system alone, actually, it occupies major portion in the case of the paper 2. That's exactly what we are going to discuss it now, right? So the power systems. Right? So this is actually one of the very important topic we can say, because most of the questions are actually, it is coming from this particular section itself. As I said earlier, the power system and power system protection, both together actually we cannot separate as 2 different topics. So those are together, actually it will be a single topic, we can say. So that single topic, actually it is carrying out to be 130 marks, which is very big out of 250. So 130 out of 250 is not a small amount, right? So that means on the power system alone, if you depend, then actually you are more than 50% of the marks already. More than 50% of the mark only from the power system and power system protection. And remaining, actually, that is the communication part, actually you can expect a remaining major portion. And then actually other topics actually will be deviated with certain amount of the marks, right? So the major portion next is the communication. So in the paper 2. And another is actually the measurements. And this is also actually the measurements, the advantage is actually the book size is very big. That is the reason actually many people will get confused that actually they have to prepare more, but ideally it's not. Because the measurements, actually the size of the book is very big. The syllabus also, it seems to be very high, but the portion that you need to prepare targetly, very small amount of the portion. That too very specific areas actually that you need to focus, like LVDTs. So where actually you can spend very less amount of the time, but still actually you can get more marks out of this particular subject. So actually this measurement itself, actually it will carry usually 40 to 50 marks. That means those people who depend on power systems, power system protection and the measurements, so actually these are the core subjects for the electrical engineering people. But for electronics people, actually you have to spend more time and learn it, because actually this is the subject which decides your success. Because actually in paper 2, this is the only subject which will decide your success. Otherwise, actually, it will be very tough for you to cross. So try to spend more time on the power system. It's not like machines. Why? Because machines, actually out of 8 different topics, actually that is one of the topic carrying only 70 marks. In the machines, actually, so this is only 70 marks. But power system is 130 marks, almost double. So that's why actually you may try to ignore the machines, but you cannot the power system, right? So that's why actually let us see what is there in the power system. Power system itself is a big subject, but in that actually the syllabus of UPSC is a little bit smaller, or actually a medium compact syllabus that was provided, because the power system actually usually divided into 3 different parts. So power system 1, power system 2, power system 1, power system 2, power system protection. Power system protection. So these are the 3 different parts of the power system that we have. But in that actually we will be studying only power system 2 and power system protection. This is actually not part of our syllabus. In the power system 1, actually what is the syllabus that contains is, that is very basics of the power system. That is the line constant calculations. That is, if you take any transmission line, the transmission line actually it involves certain amount of the resistance, certain amount of the reactance, certain amount of the capacitance, right? So those values, actually the calculation itself is a very big task, because actually in the case of the power system, if you notice, there are multiple lines that will go in parallel. So there are associated capacitances, there are associated inductances, there are associated resistances, but with multiple combinations, with series parallel combinations. So the calculation of that itself is a very big tough topic. So that part actually is not part of our syllabus. And also there are certain effects, like actually Corona effect is there, Ferranti effect is there, such kind of effects actually that are there as part of the power system 1. and other aspects like the insulation calculation. So that is actually whenever we see any overhead line, you can notice that actually there is some kind of porcelain kind of equipment that will be there, which is just below the wire. And that's what we call as the porcelain insulation. So that insulation calculation itself is a very, very big subject. So that part is anyway not part of our syllabus. So what is our part of the syllabus is the power system 2. It starts with something called power system operation and control. And control, power system operation and control, and this has actually multiple topics in it. So those topics, every part is our syllabus. So this power system 2, usually the engineering people actually they study in the final year. So that is the power system operation and control actually they study in the final year. That is exactly what the UPSC syllabus states. But this power system 1 actually it's not part of the syllabus. But to understand this power system operation and control, there is only one topic that was brought from this power system 1, that is the performance of overhead transmission lines. Performance of overhead transmission line. Overhead transmission lines. So this is one of the very, very important topic. So which forms the basis for even for the power system operation and control. And in the power system protection, actually, we have a separate set of syllabus. So that syllabus actually we will discuss down the line when we deal with the power systems protection as a separate topic, because actually that was separately given in the case of the UPSC. Now coming to this power system 2, what exactly the syllabus that was there actually that we can discuss first. And then actually we can see what are the basics that needs to be known upfront before actually we start the power system, right? So let us see what is that syllabus. Right. So in the case of the power systems, the syllabus is analysis and control. So this is what we call as the power system operation and control. Power system analysis and control. Power system analysis and control. In that actually the syllabus whatever is there is steady state performance of overhead transmission lines. Steady state performance of overhead transmission lines and cables. Principles of active and reactive power transfer. Principles of active and reactive power transfer. Active and reactive power transfer and distribution. Per unit quantities, bus admittance and impedance matrices. Per unit quantities, bus admittance and impedance. Bus admittance and impedance matrices. Load flows, voltage control and power factor correction, and power factor correction, economic operation, symmetrical components, analysis of symmetrical and unsymmetrical faults, analysis of symmetrical and unsymmetrical faults, symmetrical and unsymmetrical faults, concept of system stability, spin curves and equal area criterion, static wire system, basic concepts of HVDC transmission. Static wire system and basics of HVDC transmission. Right, so this is the complete syllabus actually what was listed by UPSC for the power systems part. And in this actually we need to understand what is this syllabus. I have clearly analyzed with one video actually earlier. So that actually clearly describes actually what we are going to learn actually as part of this particular syllabus that is available in YouTube as well, right? It will be there in your video list as well, right? And in this actually, this entire syllabus, whatever we have noticed, this is what actually we study in the final year as the power system operation and control. And this is what we call as the power systems 2. But in that actually, the steady state performance of the overhead transmission lines and the cables. This is the only topic actually which we study as part of the power system 1, and rest of the thing is actually power system operation and control, right? Now in this actually, if you notice, one is the transmission lines. The transmission lines actually it is used to transfer the power from one location to another location. That is from the generating station to the load station. There are overhead lines and the cables that are available which will transmit the power from one location to another location. So we were talking about the power transfer. So this is very, very important word in the case of the power system. That's exactly the name is power system. Power transfer is the main component and the quality of the power. So to summarize this entire syllabus in single word, what we can do is actually supplying the power without compromising the quality. That's exactly the essence of this entire power system. So there is supplying the power without compromising the quality of the power. Right? So the word quality of power actually which makes our subject complicated. So we are transferring the power from generating station to the generating stations to the load stations. But in between actually there are overhead transmission lines, automatically it comes. See, let us say there is a generating station here, and then actually this is transferred to another load, and here actually there are 3 different load centers that are available. So this is one motor, this is one more motor, and this is one more motor. And then actually while transferring the power from generating station to the load station, there will be automatically this transformers that will come into picture, right? So this is actually the step up transformer, this is the step down transformer. Why these transformers will come into picture is usually the generating station will generate a power usually very small. So that is 13.2 kV. Usually this is how it is, or actually somewhere around 33 kV, not higher than actually 33 kV you will find in the generating station, because the installation capacity that is needed for the generator is very, very costly. If you generate higher voltage, then the insulation capacity has to be more. That insulation actually will be very, very costly affair. That's exactly the reason actually why we generate the power with lesser voltage and more current, right? So more current actually, so usually whenever we generate the power, so it is always the product of V into I. This is essentially the power. So this is what actually we wanted to generate. While generating the power, we will try to keep the voltage lower value and the current higher value. Because current can be increased by increasing the area of cross section of the conductor. That means actually even if you generate higher amount of the current, it is just like increasing the copper value. So just a minute. Just a minute. Okay, sorry. Right? So 13.2 kV, this is the exact voltage usually we generate, but the current is actually can be increased, so that actually if I is increased, even though V is less, the power can be compensated, or actually the power can be generated with higher magnitude, with the higher amount of the current. Now higher amount of the current actually you can generate by keeping more number of conductors. And the area of cross section, if you keep higher value, then the resistance is going to be of less. If the resistance is less, then the I square R loss is going to be of less. So I square R loss actually, it is directly the heat. So I square R loss is always another way of expressing the heat that is going to be produced as part of the generation. Now this heat actually needs to be cooled, or actually needs to be compensated by with some kind of coolant. That's exactly the reason actually around the periphery of this alternator actually there will be a coolant oil that is going to be there, that will be circulating with the pumps. So there will be a circulation actually of the coolant oil actually which will continuously cool the winding. Now this process is fairly easier. Actually, it is less costlier rather than increasing the insulation capacity. So if you generate a higher value of the voltage, then the insulation has to be more. That will be very costly affair. So that is the reason actually we go for this particular scenario. Now this is again another thing is actually here also, because of the same reasons whatever we have done here, even on the other side the motors also actually, if it is consuming more amount of the power, then actually more amount of the current that will flow in the motors, hence actually the I square R loss is going to be of more, and there will be coolants there as well. And again, because of the insulation capacity needed, so here actually we try to use the power with the lower voltage. So here also lower voltage, and here also usually 11 kV or 33 kV or actually 13.2 kV, and this is exactly usually the higher capacity motors that are going to use it. And most of our household purpose motors, they usually use 440 volts. That's it. 440 volts line to line value. Now see this, actually we have generated lower value and we have used even the lower value here itself. But the problem is from here to here to transfer the power. What happens is, see this, here we assured that by reducing the voltage generation, we are decreasing the insulation capacity without compromising the generation of the power. We wanted to keep the higher amount of the power generation, but with lesser voltage. For that actually we have increased the current. Now that creates an issue in the transmission line. So that creates an issue in the transmission line. What kind of issue it will create in the transmission line is, here actually we have the copper conductors. That copper conductors with higher area of cross section, actually if you keep it, the resistance value is going to be usually less, because it is a copper material and the area of cross section is more. Now the same kind of copper material we cannot use to transfer the power for 100 kilometers, because actually the power which is generated in one state, that will be supplied to even to other states as well. See the distance between two different states, if you notice, it will be at least more than 200-300 kilometers. Now to transfer the power from one location to another location, we cannot have a copper line, which is very, very costly affair, because actually a copper line, that too 3-phase lines, 3 parallel lines, actually if it has to travel for 300 kilometers with copper material, and to have a higher capacity of the current, you need to increase the area of cross section also very, very high. So higher area of cross section, and and the length is going to be of more. Obviously the copper material that needs to be used actually is very, very high. And also, even if you try to keep that expense, but still there is one more problem. The weight of that copper itself, actually, we cannot carry forward between the two towers. So it will be huge weight, actually automatically it will fall down. So there are mechanical constraints as well. Because of that reason, what we do is actually, we will try to raise the voltage here. So raise the voltage, suppose actually if it is generated by 33 kV, then actually we will keep a 33 kV by 100 kV or actually 110 kV, like that actually 100 kV transmission line. So transformer, we will keep it so that actually we raise the voltage value to a higher value, right? So here actually we are raising with a higher value. Now actually, if you raise the voltage by higher value, then actually the current is going to be reduced in this particular circuit. Immediately after the generator, we will keep a transformer, right? The complexity that is involved in the generation is very, very high when compared to the design of the transformer, even with higher value of the insulation. Because actually there are certain advantages in the case of the transformer. With lesser value of the insulation capacity, you can still generate a higher value of the voltage. So I have explained the design constraints in the case of the transformers as well. There actually, if you notice, there is one core here. In that actually there is one winding here. This winding actually it is of 33 kV. On top of that, we will keep an insulation. On top of that, actually we'll keep one more winding here. This winding actually will be having 110 kV. Then actually the insulation capacity that is needed in between is 110 kV minus 33 kV. Now, whatever the voltage value that it comes out, for this actually you need to design the insulation capacity. That means actually you have got the advantage of avoiding the insulation for 33 kV. So because of this reason, here actually the transformer designs will give an advantage even to raise the values of the voltage to a higher value with a lesser value of the cost. So the cost is reduced for the insulation. And also other advantages, like actually you can fill up with the transformer oils for the coolant purpose. Hence actually, because of these constraints or because of these advantages, that's what we have got in the case of the transformer. Though we generate with a lesser value of the voltage, we raise the voltage to a higher value with the help of the transformer. Now here actually we are raising the voltage to a higher value. Now if we raise the voltage, then actually the value of the current will be reduced. But usually actually we know that actually in the case of the KVL, Ohm's law states that, right? So this states that voltage is directly proportional to current, and this is exactly V is equal to IR we have got, and this R is always maintained constant, which is the ratio between the voltage by current, which is the resistance of the conductor, right? Now actually here what we are saying is we are raising the voltage, then actually the current has to be increased, right? But actually it's not that way. And this is what actually we proved in the case of the transformer because of the law of conservation of energy. Whatever the power that is going to be injected into the transformer, the same amount of the power will come out of the transformer. And the power is a product of V into I, we proved. So if I say V1 I1, which is on the primary side, that is exactly equal to the secondary side as well, V2 I2 on the secondary side. V2 I2 is on the secondary side, V1 I1 on the primary side. Hence actually the amount of the power that is injected into the transformer, same amount of the power will come out because of the law of conservation of energy. And this gives the flexibility for us. What kind of flexibility we are going to get? Here actually the value of I2. So V1 I1 is equal to V2 I2. Then I2 can be expressed as V1 by V2 times I1. Right? V1 by V2 times of I1. Now if you notice, let us say this is 33 kV 100 kV. Then it is 33 kV divided by 100 kV into I1. See this, 33 by 100 is less than 1. That means whatever the ratio of the voltage that we have increased, the same amount of the ratio of the current is going to be reduced here. So it is inverse of, so 100 by 33. So this is actually 33 to 100 it is changed. Then actually the current will be in the reverse ratio. That is 33 by 100 is less than 1 multiplied by I1, which will give the lesser value of the current. That means if you raise the voltage by, suppose actually we take a simpler calculation. Rather than this actually 13.2 kV it is generated power, and this is actually 13.2 kV divided by 132 kV. Now if you give this transformer, then actually the raise of the voltage is 10 times and the current will be reduced by 10 times. So hence actually this is going to be of 1 by 10. So 13.2 divided by 132 into I1. See, this is 1 by 10 times of I1. Now the amount of the current is going to be reduced by 1 by 10. Now this gives the advantage for us. What kind of advantage? Because this line length is actually usually hundreds of kilometers. So if it is of hundreds of kilometers, then the resistance will be definitely very, very high. Why? Because I square R loss. So in that actually R is the resistance part. That resistance value, when we calculate the resistance of any particular value, so this is rho L by A, where A is the area of cross section, L is the length of the conductor. So L value is 100 kilometers now. Now L is proportional to the resistance, and the current is decided by the load. So current is not decided by the transmission line or the resistance of the transmission line. The current is decided by the load. How much current it needs to drag, it decides. Now that much of current it needs to travel from this location to this location. And there actually the resistance value is proportional to L. So R is proportional to the L. And also we wanted to keep the area of cross section also less. Why? Because if you increase the area of cross section, see the amount of the material that we need to use is actually very, very high. Because the area of cross section, if you suppose actually this is one conductor, let us say, if I increase the conductor size to this particular size, then actually this area of cross section for a length of 100 kilometers, see the amount of the increase. Very, very huge amount of the material that needs to be used. So usually actually we use the aluminum material. Now for that reason actually we wanted to keep the area of cross section less, and length actually we don't have any control, because actually we need to anyway transfer the power from one location to another location. Hence actually the only possibility is actually we wanted to reduce the current to the extent possible. So to the least value possible actually we can increase the voltage so that the resistance is going to be, so that the current is going to be of very, very less. So we will bring this current to such a value that actually it is very, very small. So here actually suppose if 100 amperes are injected here, it is hardly 1 ampere actually we make sure that actually it will come on the other side. Now I value is very, very less value now, because I square R loss you wanted to reduce it. So two important factors we have achieved. One is the material is saved to a greater extent. This is the fundamental thing, because actually the area of cross section is reduced by reducing the current. So you can make use of very small amount of the material, because actually very small size of the conductor itself is sufficient to transfer a power with a higher magnitude. So MVA power also it can be transferred very easily with a smaller amount of the current. So that is actually one important factor we have achieved by reducing the material. Another important factor what we have achieved is I square R loss. I square R loss, as I said, that is nothing but the power. That power is nothing but the consumption power. That consumed power is used in the generation of the heat throughout the line. Now that heat, whatever it is going to generate, if you notice, the P is directly proportional to I square of the value of the current. And R is anyway decided, because once it is designed, then actually the line itself will possess certain value of the resistance. Hence actually I is the one which will decide the amount of the power. That I value, if you reduce it, the square of that value is going to be of reduced. So a huge advantage we are going to get in the reduced power consumption in the line. And that will have two different advantages. One advantage is, one is the actual power that is going to be consumed is reduced. That means actually if you generate 100 MVA here, then actually 100 MVA which is generated, so if only 1 MVA is actually consumed here, and remaining 99 actually if you are able to get it here, then actually that will be a huge advantage for us. So that way actually the consumption of the power is going to be reduced to a greater extent by reducing the value of the current with the help of the transformer. So the greatest advantage it does is reduction of the power consumption. So, and that is one way direct advantage. Another direct advantage is the consumed power, what it will do, it will be generated in the form of the heat. That heat actually, there are two different kind of effects it can do. One is it can melt the wire itself. So that actually if it melts the wire, so because actually throughout the year actually the power is getting transmitted, then throughout the year actually it will generate the power. So throughout the year actually it will be consuming the power, and then actually it will be generating the continuous heat. That heat actually, if it is more, then actually it will spoil the conductor itself, or actually it will melt the conductor itself. That is one problem. So by reducing the current value, you are avoiding that by reducing the amount of the heat that is going to be generated. And another is actually it will spoil the environment as well, because actually in and around the entire air is getting heated, and actually it will be ionized continuously, and that will have actually side effects on the birds and all. So that's the reason actually we will try to keep this heat generation to a lower value. So this is another advantage. That's what we are going to get in the case of the transformer. So the transformer actually will give these advantages. So reduction of the material that is going to be used for the conductor, reduction of the power, and so the power consumption, and the reduction of the heat. So indirectly it will have advantage on the environment as well. So these are all the main advantages that we are going to get with the help of this transformer. So this actually we have got. Now actually at the other end, if you notice, again because of the same reasons whatever we have used in the case of the generation, the same kind of reasons that are there even for the motor as well. Because in the machines we learned that motors and generators are one and the same. Only thing is actually if you supply the power, then it will be working as a motor. If you rotate the motor, then actually it will work as a generator. So as simple as that. That means the same kind of equipment is there on the other side as well. Then it will be using the power with lesser value of the voltage and higher values of the current. Then whatever the advantages we brought in here, once the purpose is over at the other end, we will bring back to the normal voltage level and increase the current level. So by taking a transformer which is opposite ratio, usually 132 kV divided by 13.2 kV, right? So opposite value actually it is going to be there. Now actually whatever the power that is going to be generated here, the same amount actually we can get it here. Now 13.2 kV. Depending upon the machines, we can have multiple transformers with multiple ratios also. So you can have a transformer here, so that actually suppose if this machine is designed only for the 11 kV, then actually it needs to transmit again here actually 132 kV. 13.2 kV to 11 kV transformer you should have it at this particular point. Like this actually whatever the amount of the voltage that is required, depending upon that you will be keeping one transformer over there. Now this is the complete structure of your power system, and this is very, very important to understand. So this is a complete structure of your power system. That too I have shown as a single line diagram. So this is a single line diagram. So that means actually everything I have shown as a single line. Generator we have studied separately. The alternator we have studied separately. That is the synchronous machines, which will be generating the power with 3 different phases and 3 different wires that will come out. And there are actually the powers that are generated in the 3 phases, and all the 3 phases actually will carry the power. But we have not shown all those things. We have shown a single line. So this is a generator, and there is a line actually which is coming till this particular point. That means actually all the 3 phases are coming here, and this is again a 3-phase transformer. And again actually the power actually after the transformer with 3 different lines actually it will go to the other transformer, because 3 phases that will carry forward. And then actually again it will be 3 phases actually which will come out, and then actually the 3-phase supply is supplied to each and every motor here. That means entire 3-phase system is represented with a single line diagram. And this is the usual way of specifying a power system. This actually you have to be very much acquainted with, because most of the times the problems are described only with this particular structure. And here actually from this you need to bring out the normal way of analysis. So this needs to be modeled as a normal circuit. That circuit involving the resistances and inductances, and if at all capacitances that are there, actually those values actually we have to bring in. So the complexity will be reduced to a greater extent in problem solving if you know how to make the single line diagram to a normal circuit which can be solved with the help of the KVL. So the essence of this power system is understand the structure, understand the purpose of it, and then actually bring this into the normal circuit which can be analyzed with the help of the KVL. That is the essence of the power system. But KVL actually anyway actually you know from the networks actually how to solve it and how to calculate each and every value. How we are modeling that particular network, or how we are modeling a big power system into our known analysis of the KVL, that is your talent in the case of the power system. That's what actually you are intended to learn. If you know that, then actually you don't need to study the power systems at all. But how to do that, that is a complicated question, right? So these things actually we'll be doing it now. Now in this actually, next important aspect is, so this is how the power system is there. That means actually we are transferring the power from one location to another location. Obviously there are associated structures that are going to be there. These associated structures are, there will be a generator, there will be a transformer, and there will be a step down transformer as well, and there will be loads. So this is the general structure of your power system. Along with that, now see the increment. So this is the generator, and then this is the transformer, and this is the step down transformer, and then actually the loads are there, right? Now actually These are very, very costly equipment. This costly equipment needs to be protected, because actually if there is some small short circuit, then actually if this is completely fired off, then actually a huge loss will be there, because actually the cost of this equipment is of order of 700 crores, like that. 700 crores, not a small amount. Such a huge costly equipment these are. And actually usually not lesser than 100 crores each of the equipment in the power systems that you can notice. Now that level of equipment you need to protect continuously without spoil. And this is actually one important aspect. That's exactly the reason there is a separate topic called power system protection. That protection is intended for multiple things. One is the generator protection. So generation protection techniques, actually we have to be aware what kind of problems that can occur in the case of the generator. So what kind of problems that can occur is actually, suppose actually because of some reason the two phases are got short circuited. The reason can be anything. Suppose actually the rotor get spoiled and then actually it is trying to rash it out, and then actually these two wires are jointed. Then actually there is a huge amount of the circulating current that is going to be generated. That circulating current actually will provide a huge amount of the heat. That heat actually will fire the entire alternator. So that is a problem. That means shortage of the lines. And then actually insulation failure, there is one more problem. So if there is an insulation failure, then actually the short circuit can happen even with the air as well. So insulation protection needs to be identified. So such kind of aspects that we'll be studying as part of a separate topic called the power system protection. And then actually the transformer needs to be protected. So because actually this is also very, very costly equipment. So because the power capacity of this transformer is very, very high, hence actually this needs to be protected. And also this line, the line length is actually of the order of 100 kilometers. Suppose actually if there is a breakage of the power system line, then actually completely one state actually will go into the dark, because the power supplied to the entire state will be supplied from one central location. From there actually there is a huge line of hundreds of kilometers. If it is traveling somewhere in the middle, actually if there is a breakage, then actually it will be a problem, because actually the entire state is depending on only this particular line. So hence actually the transmission line also needs to be protected. And also the line actually we can protect it, but actually the lines it will go from the fields and the rivers and everywhere actually it will go. Now actually identifying the location of the failure also very, very important. So where exactly this got failed, that location actually, because we don't know, we cannot keep on travel throughout the line, right? Where exactly the problem is happened. So that's why actually there is something called distance protection. There is something like distance protection that is going to be there only for the transmission line to identify where exactly the fault is happened. Depending upon that actually which equipment needs to be protected, that is also needs to be identified. Which equipment needs to be protected, meaning suppose let us say there is certain amount of the power actually it is traveling, and that amount of the power is actually very, very high. Let us say 100 MVA power is actually it is flowing through this particular line. Then actually suppose suddenly this line got broken, then actually that amount of the power actually it is already there on this particular transformer. Then actually that amount of the power, let us say if there is a short circuit here, then actually there is a huge amount of the circulating current that is going to be produced here, and this circulating current will spoil this transformer. Then if there is a problem, then actually it needs to disconnect here and it needs to disconnect here, so that actually these equipments are continuously protected, right? And also actually this alternator also needs to be protected. Immediately there will be a relay that is going to be there here, actually it will activate and this alternator will be protected. So this actually sequentially, depending upon the location of the failure, it will try to identify which circuit breaker needs to be opened. Circuit breaker is nothing but it will break the circuit. That it's like a switch, but normal switch is different. A circuit breaker is different, because the circuit breaker actually it is still a switch but opens a power of 100 MVA. That is the meaning of it. Now opens a power of 100 MVA meaning, so you can see some of the YouTube videos, like actually see this, there is one particular point here and this is actually one more point is there here, and actually so there is a switch actually that is going to be opened here and it will try to open like this. So it's a bigger length actually it is going to be open. Now while opening there is a big fire actually that is going to come in like this, almost like actually almost 10-15 meters actually this will come a fire like this while opening itself. So just opening the switch itself is very, very complicated in the case of the power system because of the amount of the power. That's what we are going to use. So this is actually one more important aspect that needs to be considered, that is the power system protection, right? So we have generated the power and we transmitted the power. While transmitting, we are protecting our equipment. So these are all the basic things actually that we have to be aware in the case of the power system. And the next important thing is, just supplying the power is not just sufficient enough. We need to supply the qualitative power as well. The qualitative power is actually, by turn, what it says is, one is the voltage levels. Should be maintained constant always. Right? So this is one important aspect. And then the second one is frequency needs to be maintained constant. So these are the two important aspects. And also actually, third one is power failure should not be there. So these terms actually will make our power system analysis is very, very complicated. Only these three terms. What are these three terms? One is the voltage needs to be maintained constant. As I said earlier, voltage actually, suppose actually at this particular point, we have generated a voltage of 13.2 kV. But by the time actually, so let us say this is also designed for 13.2 kV. But in between, there is a huge amount of the current actually that is traveling here, because actually the voltage being reduced, a higher value of the current actually it will go there. Now, if it is going higher value of the current, and there is a line here, and these lines will have its own resistances, and these resistances actually will assure certain amount of the voltage drops. And because of the resistance and reactance, both actually there will be an amount of voltage drop that is going to be there. You are expecting 13.2 kV because these motors are designed for 13.2 kV, but actually you may get only 12 kV because of the voltage drops in between, right? Then you might think that actually, why can't we design this motor itself for only for 12 kV? So that actually we know that actually 13.2 kV, if it is supplied here, we know only 12 kV is coming. Then we can design a motor for 12 kV so that actually there won't be any issue in the power system at all, right? Yes, it can be done. But the problem there is, this is not fixed. Why? Because, see this, what happens is, if all the three motors are on, then actually there will be a current here I1, there will be a current here I2, and there will be a current here I3. And here actually I1 plus I2 plus I3. So this is the current actually that is traveling from this location. Now, if all the three motors are on, then actually sum of all the currents actually will be traveling here. Hence actually I into Z. So the value of the voltage drop in the impedance between this point and this point is actually very, very high. Now, because of some reason, because we don't know what is the application of these motors, right? So this guy actually turned off, let us say. Then actually the amount of the current run is only I1 plus I2. There is nothing like I3. Now, in such case, the amount of the voltage drop is going to be reduced. That means actually, earlier actually we are getting only 12 kV. Now actually we got 13 kV. Because actually the reduction of the power consumption from the load centers. And this is actually quite dynamic, because actually that is dependent on the applications, what they are using for these motors, right? So hence actually that is quite dynamically changing. Hence actually, if you design for 12 kV, 13 kV will come and it will spoil the motor. So this is one more important problem. So whatever the design voltage that is there, exactly that value actually needs to be supplied. Hence actually there is something called voltage control is a separate topic for us. So we need to control the voltage. Depending upon the application requirement, we have to be supplying. We assure certain values. Suppose actually in the house actually, the government will assure that actually we will give 230 volts for you. So all the equipments which are working in our house actually, it was designed for 230 volts. But actually they give you a range that is actually in between 200 to 230. The bulbs are actually whatever the equipment we use in the house actually, that will be usually operational if there is a voltage range of 200 to 230 volts. But sometimes actually in that particular, suppose actually in that particular road, if all the people are actually turning on their switches, then actually you may get hardly 180 volts. That time actually you can notice that actually now in our houses actually the tube lights won't glow. Why? Because actually the voltage that is coming out is very, very less. Because that is dependent on how many houses are using the power at that particular instant of the time. So that is quite dynamic. So that is a challenging problem. So that's why actually we use in our houses actually voltage stabilizers, because actually fridges and all, right? So they are getting spoiled actually if you give very lesser value of the voltage. So voltage stabilizers in our house actually we are using specifically to compensate the fact that unreliable voltages that are coming from the power. So because of that reason only we use the voltage stabilizers in our house, whichever the equipment we wanted to protect it. Otherwise actually lesser voltage, higher value of the current will damage the machine, because actually if the TV is used, lesser value of the voltage but the same amount of the power is consumed, V into I value is increased because the voltage is reduced, hence higher value of the current actually it will spoil the transistors within the machine, within the TV, right? So such kind of problems actually it can occur. And if it is a small equipment, then we might not worry. If it is simply bulb, then actually we don't worry. But actually, suppose if it is a TV of cost maybe 3 lakhs, then actually we definitely needs to worry about it, right? So all those aspects actually needs to be considered. So this is actually one important aspect. And another thing is, the frequency control. What is this frequency control is? We assure that we will supply 50 hertz frequency throughout India. So throughout India, whatever may be the generating station you take it, we assure that actually 50 hertz needs to be generated, and that value actually needs to be coming for the power grid, so that actually every equipment which is connected to our power system will be used only with the help of this 50 hertz. They give you a range actually usually, so maybe 48.5 hertz to 51.5. So approximately this range of the frequencies are accepted for the power grid. And if it is coming out of it, automatically it will go out of the synchronization, and then actually it will be removed from the power grid. So this is the amount of the frequency actually we assure for all the equipment, or actually for all the equipments that are used in case of India. But in other countries like in US actually they assure 60 hertz, 60. And the equipments that are manufactured are based on this particular frequency level, because actually, as I explained earlier, if you take any particular equipment, the flux density and the frequency, these are all the essential components in the loss factor. The loss factor is, that is the hysteresis loss and eddy current losses, because in every equipment actually we do have some kind of iron material, and we do have, because actually every material or every equipment will be designed with some of the other kinds of iron materials, right? So hysteresis and eddy current losses actually are essential components in the case of the AC power. And in that case actually the frequency is the one actually which is responsible in creating those losses. So if the frequency is a fixed value, then actually the amount of the loss consumed is going to be of fixed value. Suppose if it is changed, then the more amount of the losses that are going to be there, hence actually the efficiency of the machines are going to be reduced to a greater extent. So that is the reason actually the frequency needs to be maintained constant. This is very, very important aspect, right? Because even the machines also, you can see the other way, like actually the induction motor and the synchronous motors are actually, if you notice, the supply frequency is the one which will decide the speed of the motor. And this we clearly discussed in the case of the machines. The supply frequency, we are assuming everywhere actually it is as 50 hertz. Suppose actually if it is coming only 40 hertz, then actually you design the machine for 1500 RPM, which is the synchronous speed, but actually it is only 40 hertz, hence actually I think it may be somewhere around 1350 RPM it will come. But suppose if it is a machine like paper manufacturing, if you notice, a constant speed needs to be assured always, so that actually the thickness of the paper is exactly the same. Suppose if there is a small change in the rotational speed, then actually the paper may cut over there, so it will spoil complete bundle of the paper completely. So in such kind of applications actually we are giving the power there. If we are giving the power there, we have to assure the frequency there, because the machines that are designed there is a synchronous machine and it operates with a constant speed. That constant speed is decided by the supply. So if you don't give the proper supply frequency, then actually whatever the design they make it in their factory, it will be completely spoiled. So these are all the fundamental problems that we have to be assuring it. And then actually power failures shouldn't be there. This is very, very important. Power failures. See this actually, the problem is there is something called grid. The grid is actually throughout India, the transmission lines are actually traveling from one location to another location. All are interconnected. You can think of, suppose if you people are from electronics background, you can think of a chip. So that is actually, if the chip is designed, for the chip actually almost crores of transistors that are fabricated on one particular silicon. Now crores of transistors are fabricated on the silicon, which is very, very small in size. but actually every transistor needs a power. And how to supply the power? So that's exactly the reason actually when we design any particular chip, right? In the chip design process, first what they do is actually they place the bond pads. Bond pads means actually, so this is the chip. Now actually there are pins that are coming out, right? So the pins that are coming out, first actually where exactly these pins are coming out, there actually they need to place some kind of metal there so that actually the metal and these pins are coming out. So these are actually interconnected each other. Now once you place this bond pads, and next immediately what they do is actually they do power routing, right? So power routing is nothing but they do a power grid. Power grid is nothing but just pass all the lines, and these lines are actually interconnected everywhere. And then actually if this is a power pin, then actually this wire is connected here. And if this is a power pin, this wire is connected here, and there is one more power pin that is connected here, and there is one more power that is connected here. Now in the case of the VLSI design, this is how actually they place, and then actually they route these powers. So these power lines actually usually a higher value of the thickness, because actually the resistance needs to be less, so that the power is supplied with the same amount of the voltage throughout the transformer, throughout the transistors, right? Now the transistors are placed throughout this particular region. Infinite number of transistors that are placed here. Now every transistor is connected to this particular power grid. But actually, if the power is injected from here, by the time it comes to the middle transistor, automatically there is a huge amount of the voltage drop that is going to be there. The huge amount of the voltage drop in case of electronics is, you usually supply 5 volts here, and every transistor is designed to operate with 5 volts. But actually, by the time actually the middle transistor, there is a voltage drop of, let us say, 1 volt, then actually this transistor will get to only 4 volt. But with 4 volt, actually the transistor will not operate. Will not operate meaning, as this is a digital design, 4 volt actually, if it is coming lesser than 4 volt, then actually that's what we say as a toggle state, or actually it is actually hanging over air, because it's not 0, it's not 1. And that one particular mistake will spoil the complete design of that particular chip. And this is actually the power grid purpose. The same thing, if we enlarge it, that is our Indian power grid. The same thing actually we are doing. In Indian power grid, actually, there are multiple transmission lines actually that are traveling throughout India. Because actually everywhere actually we can notice the transmission lines. There are big towers actually that are traveling with big wires, right? So, and every wire is interconnected with other wires. Like this actually, the power is actually like a grid throughout India, actually it will travel. Every wire is interconnected. That means like the way actually we connect all the wires. So vertical wires and horizontal wires, everything is actually designed and properly kept it here. Because this is a small area, we can perfectly design like a perfect rectangle. But in the case of India, throughout India, if you need to transmit, we cannot make a perfect rectangles, right? So there actually what we do is, so let us say there is one wire here, and there is one more here, and like this actually, the wires are actually going like this, and this is what we call as the power grid. In this power grid actually, here we may be having a generating station, and here actually we may be having a generating station. Here we may be having a generating station, and here there may be a load, 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 and here may be a generating station. So like this actually, throughout India, this grid actually is traveling at different locations. The power is injected into this particular grid, and then actually at different locations, the motors actually will be consuming the power. It's not only the motors, even our house is also part of this particular grid. And so our agricultural motors also actually is part of this grid, and all the factories also part of this particular grid. Throughout India, whatever the equipment electrically, if you use it, that will be part of this particular grid. See the size of the power system now. Throughout India, all the equipments, all the generating stations, all the motors, all the factories, everything is part of this particular one. So this is the structure of the power system. Now at multiple locations, the power is injected into this particular grid, and at multiple locations, actually the power is consumed throughout India. Now the problem is to maintain such a huge grid. This way, if you are able to maintain, one huge advantage you are going to get is, whatever may be the generation station failures, but still actually the grid is connected with other things. Hence actually the power is actually continuously supplied. So power failures you can avoid it, because actually even if these two generators are going out, then actually remaining generators you can supply the power. And suppose because of the failure of these two generators, if I can remove this particular load, then actually this can be operated with a stable way. right? Because actually the load is removed, because we know that actually the remaining generators actually we cannot supply the power required for all the loads. Then actually we know whichever is having more load, I can remove that load and then actually I can assure the power for all others. So like this, actually by making a power grid, we have assured that the quality of the power, and throughout the day actually the power can be supplied without having any failure. Not only a day, throughout the year actually the power is supplied if there is a power grid like this. And to maintain this power grid, there is a separate department. So there is an organization called Power Grid. So this is actually, Power Grid is separately one organization which will assure just the wires interconnections and supplying the loads and taking the power from the generating station. And for generating stations, again actually we have three different categories of the generating stations. So usually one is the thermal, hydro, nuclear, right? These are the three different categories of the power. So power generation stations actually we usually have it. And then actually there are other variations as well. Other variations like non-conventional energy sources, non-conventional. But these non-conventional energy sources are actually very, very small percentage. Hardly 1% to 2% will be there. But 98% is actually categorized by all these three stations, 98%. These non-conventional energy sources are, one is the solar power, another is the wind power, another is the tidal power. So these are the three important powers actually, which we call this as the non-conventional energy sources. So usually actually it can't be adapted for a higher values. These are actually just for that particular equipment, or actually just for that particular factory, they can have this kind of equipment and then they can make use for only for their purpose, not connected to the grid. But these are the equipments, and in this actually, this is occupying 70% of the consumption. So 70% is thermal powers, and then actually remaining actually 20% is for the hydropower and 10% is for the nuclear power. Because of multiple reasons actually we do adopt this kind of reasons. One is actually coal availability is high in the case of India, hence actually we use the thermal power. So and the hydropower actually depending upon the natural stations, that is actually there has to be a river, there has to be a hilly area, and the water has to come from the top of the hill to the bottom. That time actually the energy, which is what we call as the potential energy, that will be converted into the electrical energy. But everywhere it is simply the energy. So that energy actually will be connecting. So this is actually depending upon the nature. So depends on nature. And this nuclear power actually, so in India actually we got scared of nuclear power. Suppose actually in one particular area, if government wanted to keep a nuclear power plant, then actually there will be almost big revolutions will come from that particular area. They don't want that nuclear power to be placed at that particular location because people are getting scared of nuclear bomb blasts, right? So that's the reason actually in India, not of much this nuclear power plants are available, right? So this is actually because of the political reasons, this kind of power is actually not adapted to a greater extent in India. And another is the thermal power actually, which is huge power of, so huge power is only from the thermal. Why? Because the coal availability is very, very high. And also actually coal can be carried forward from one location to another location with the help of the goods trains very, very easily. Hence actually, this is the kind of power actually mostly we are using currently because the availability of coal is still there. Suppose down the line actually the availability of the coal actually if it is reduced, then actually we may have to go for the nuclear plants because so in India actually I think so plutonium is very high. So this plutonium actually you can convert into the nuclear power plants and then you can use it. If the power is not available, then actually there is no other option. Actually, we have to go for the nuclear powers. So like this, actually, these power stations, depending upon the different reasons. So there are political reasons, there are economic reasons, there are resource availability reasons. All these reasons together, actually, we will come up with one power plant, right? That power plant actually may be located somewhere. So that location power, if it is generated, that needs to be connected to the grid and it has to be supplied to the throughout India. In this particular process, as I said, all the factors, whatever I have explained, every factor will play its own role. And all those roles actually how we are going to study is our subject of the power system. Got it? So this is how actually we are going to study. In the next class, actually, I will analyze or actually I will just explain what are all the basic things that needs to be aware before we actually jump into the topic. So that is actually one is the power flow equations. That is how the power is actually calculated. and what is the active power, what is reactive power, and another is the per unit system, how we are going to calculate the resistance and the reactance values in the throughout the circuit. So all those things, actually there are certain basics that needs to be aware. First we go through those basics, it takes one class, and then actually we actually join into the class that is the overhead transmission line performance in the next class. Yeah, that's all for today. Yeah, thank you.